Hey, this is the second techniques video. This one's going to cover some how to bend your strings, how to unison bend your strings, and also how to vibrato. So let's start off with bends. A bend is whenever you take your string and you bend it. You bend it up. Okay, so all of your strings except your top two, they should be bent up toward the ceiling, or you know what I mean. That's the standard way to do it. Except your top two strings, you need to bend them down, because if you bent them up, they would go over the top of the neck and then it would sound like an elephant or whatever kind of animal. Yeah. So I'm going to cover the two most common intervals would be a half step and a whole step, which we talked about those and how to find notes on your guitar. So I'm going to be here in the 7th fret of the G string, and 7th fret of the G string, I'm going to need to bend this note up a half step to show you how. So if I were going to bend this note up to make it sound a half step higher, my target pitch would be the fret right in front of it, the 8th fret. So you need, if you need to like hum it or something, that helps a lot. And then go back to the 7th fret and then try to match that pitch. Learn how to match a half step bend, and learn how to do it in tune, because if you can't bend in tune, you might as well not bend at all. So practice it a lot. Okay. A whole step bend, your target pitch would be 2 frets ahead, so it would be the 9th fret. Okay. So that's the two intervals, and you can combine those if you're courageous with your strings and you have an extra set of strings handy in case one of them breaks. You can try doing, like, you know, step and a half bends and two step bends, and even further than that. So those are the intervals, and then there's different shapes of bends. So look here, there's one that's where you bend it and then you mute it at the top of the bend. And in guitar notation, that would look like an arrow going to the side and then going up, and then that's it. It just stops at the up arrow. So that's what a bend then mute would be. Alright. There's also one that's bend and release, or bend and relax. You bend it up to the top and then you relax it back to standard pitch. So in guitar notation, that would be an arrow going over and then up, pointing up, and then another arrow going over and down and then up. And then an arrow at the bottom. At the very top of the arrow, you'll see a 1, which means a whole step, or a 1/2, which means a half step bend. Or sometimes you'll see a 1/4 bend, and that means just bend the note slightly out of tune. Not quite up to a half step. So we have bend then mute, bend then relax, and then we have a pre-bend. So that means you bend the note before you pluck it, and then mute it. That's a pre-bend then mute. There's also a pre-bend on guitar tab looks like an arrow going straight up and an arrow at the top. That's a pre-bend then mute. Then there's a pre-bend then relax. Okay, and that would look like an arrow going straight up and then another arrow going over and down. That'd be a pre-bend then relax or release. So then you can combine those, do a pre-bend, then relax, then bend it up again and mute it at the top. Or you could do the opposite, bend it up, relax it, and bend it back up. So just combine those in. Very, very necessary for any kind of guitar solo. Alright, moving on to unison bends. Unison bends are they're usually accomplished on the first two strings or the second and third strings. On the second and third string, I'm gonna still keep bending the 7th fret of the G string. Okay. For a unison bend, it's whenever you hold a note on the string below the string you're bending, and then play both strings and bend the lower note to match the higher note. Alright, I'm going to put some distortion on here so that you can hear how it sounds. So I'm keeping my first finger on the 5th fret of the B string, and I'm bending the 7th fret of the G string. I don't bend my first finger note, okay? I'm just holding that still. And this one, oops, I think I'm out of tune. Here we go. So this note is actually one whole step higher than this note. Okay, so that's why you can bend it a whole step and it matches it. On these two sets of strings, you can do that anywhere. Just make sure your two fingers are 2 frets apart. Okay, so on the first two strings you have to go 3 frets apart. So I'm going to go to the B string with my ring finger in the 8th fret and bend that note, and then I'm going to hold the 5th fret of the first string stationary without bending it with my first finger. So bend it until it matches the first string. So so anywhere you go on the first two strings, they'll always be 3 frets apart. Okay, so you can. A lot of times they're done really quickly. A lot of times they're done very slowly to achieve some dissonance, and then gradually resolve to consonant. So that's some unison bends, okay? Now you know what those are. I'm going to move quickly into some vibrato. Vibrato is a very important technique because it kind of gives it more of like a human voice quality. Vibrato is whenever you bend. This is vibrato. Okay, there's 3 or 4 different ways to achieve vibrato on an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. So vibrato, the standard way to, probably the most common way to do it is, I'm still on the 7th fret of the G string here. You bend the note down slightly, and then you relax it. Okay, bend it down slightly, very slightly, and then relax it to normal. Okay, do it very quickly. And unlike bends, it's the opposite. You bend down on vibrato on all strings except the first string, then you bend it up. Okay, so that's vibrato. That's I think it's called like finger joint vibrato. Another vibrato would be to stiffen your wrist and just touch the string. Don't let any other. Just touch the guitar with the very tips of your fingers, and then shake the guitar up and down. That would be like wrist vibrato. Another vibrato would be to move your finger back and forth the length of the fret. So, and that's classical vibrato. And the other type of vibrato, if you have an electric guitar with a tremolo system, I don't have my whammy bar on, but that's how you would do it. You'd bend the whammy bar down slightly and then release it. Alright, that would be tremolo vibrato. So there you have 3 new techniques: bends, unison bends, and vibrato. Cool. See you next lesson.